Hi everyone, my name is Mads, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video where I'm going to be telling you about the many books I have hauled in the last few days, really. I haven't filmed a book haul in years because A, I'm always trying to reduce how many books I buy, and B, I normally get books in a very slow trickle and I read them pretty soon after I get them and all sorts. So it doesn't really make sense for me. However, in the last few days, I've had a few things going on that have resulted in me acquiring an obscene number of books in a very short period of time, and I'm ridiculously excited about every single one of them. So I thought, why not? We'll go back to old style YouTube content and make a haul. So I'll count up at the end, but if I've gathered all the books and not lost any, I think I have 30 books roughly, maybe just below, maybe just above, and these are from a variety of places, and I'll talk you through where I got each of them as we go, but I'm going to get straight into it so we're not here for too long. I'll try and do very quick synopses, but it's going to have to be relatively speedy, and also I've not read these yet, so I don't know in detail what they're about, as I often pick up books based on vibes. But let's get started. So the very first book I have to talk about, I bought at a local bookstore called Backstory, which is like a bookstore slash cafe wine bar, and it's an absolute vibe, highly recommend it. And that is Grow Where They Fall by Michael Donkor. This, I believe, is Michael's second book. I haven't read the first one, but this follows, I can't remember the character's name, Kwame, who you follow him sort of throughout his life. So at the beginning of the book, he's 10 years old, and I think you see him when he's about 30. And it's his story of growing up black and queer in South London, and then I think working as a school teacher in South London as an adult, and what that looks like. To me it sounds fascinating. It's very much set in and around the area that I live, which is really cool, as I've only lived here for a couple of years, and obviously the author grew up here and has written a book about someone growing up here, so it'd be really cool to hear a lot more about the area, especially in slightly different areas, because I believe this is set maybe in the 80s for the first part, maybe 90s, 97, late 90s. But this sounds to me absolutely fascinating. I mean, queer black author, queer black character, what more could you want? And I actually met the author very briefly. I happened to go to this bookstore a few days after I bought it, and it was a launch event for this book with the author, completely unaware of that when I went. I just went for a drink and hang out with a friend. But we got to meet him, which was really lovely. I didn't have my copy, so I couldn't get it signed, but it was really fun and made me even more excited to read this one. I want to say hopefully soon, but I'm going to say that for every single book on this list, and I'm not going to read 30 books soon, so just ignore me. The next far too many books I'm going to be talking about were all bought over the span of 2 days. And this is because my mum came down to London for a couple of days. My mum also reads a lot and loves buying books. And so we went on a little bit of a book shopping spree. I think overall we went to 11 different bookstores across 2 days. We didn't buy books at all of them, so I probably won't mention all of them, but I will run you through bookstore by bookstore what I picked up. And this was weird for me. I, more often than not, will pick up books I know in bookstores, but this time I was just really in the mood to scan the shelves and see what jumped out at me, so I knew of basically none of these books prior to getting them. So we have a load of new interesting things on my shelves which I'd never heard of before, and I'm just gonna have to hope I like. We started off at Waterstones Piccadilly, and the first book I picked up was Orbital by Samantha Harvey. This, I believe, follows a small group of people who are orbiting Earth. Yeah, 6 astronauts rotating their spacecraft above the Earth, and they're there to do scientific stuff, scientific experiments, as you'd expect on, for example, the International Space Station. But I believe it becomes kind of a meditation on humanity and Earth and grief and life and death, because they've got this very different view of the world than most people ever get, and that sounds super interesting to me. It's super tiny. A lot of these are really tiny. I don't know how that's happened, but it's quite fun. And it just sounds really interesting. It says the fragility of human life fills their conversations, their fears, their dreams. So far from Earth, they've never felt more part or protective of it. They begin to ask, what is life without Earth? What is Earth without humanity? So just a little think piece, which will be really fun to sit and read in one go, hopefully at some point. Next, I picked up In the Absence of Men by Philippe Besson. This is set in the early 1900s in France, I want to believe. I think you're following a 16-year-old boy in France and sort of living the high life, going to, as it says, salons and soirees, but has an electrifying encounter with Marcel Proust, the author, And I think that kind of starts him on a journey of queerness and what that could be like in the early 1900s. I don't know tons about this one, but I actually picked up 2 copies because I thought my mum would love it, and then said to her, I think you'd like this, and her response was, I've already read it this year and it's going to be my favourite book of the year. So I'm taking that as a high recommendation, and I'm really intrigued for some olden times queerness. It's always interesting to read from a completely different time period for these sort of things. I would also say now, 90% of the books I picked up, if not more, are queer. Wasn't intentional. I've discovered I have a superpower, which is when I'm scanning bookshelves, I will pick out a random book that for no apparent reason looks interesting to me. Like, there is no reason that spine should have been of particular interest to me. Like, it's nice, but it's not that special. And without fail, the ones I pick out are queer, which is a combination of fantastic to see more queer books in bookshops, meaning there's a higher chance of that happening. And also, I just think I'm psychic. I don't know, but it's great fun. Next up, another random pick is Elastic by Joanne Beale. I don't know again how you say that. This is sapphic. I can't remember what else there is about it. Let me read the blurb and let you know. Yeah, so this follows Alice and Mathilde, who I believe one is married, the other is in a long-term relationship, and the two of them meet and form a relationship. And because of their other partners, the decision is made to, as this defines it, to proceed into a quadrilateral relationship. Poly, maybe. It's translated fiction. I want to say from Dutch. Oh, Danish author, so slightly different. Yeah, it just sounds fascinating to me. It's also one of the most gorgeous little, like, it has the flaps, and it's this tiny little paperback, and I love it. And to be honest with you, it sounded interesting in general, and then I was like, I wonder how the first page reads. And the first line was, I sit cross-legged in the shower and look at my vagina. And then the last line in the first page was, today I think ugly. That is the C word, which I don't think I can say on YouTube, much as I would love to. Honestly, I just need to know. I need to know, and you know, more sapphic fiction. And then, continuing the trend, we have Pony Boy by Elliot Duncan, which follows a trans-masc individual pony boy. And I believe we're kind of seeing his, like, descent and things not going well for him. I think it's this like self-destructive, and relationships are crumbling, and it's his relationships with multiple different people and what he does for them and what happens. And where was the bit that I really liked? An evocative debut novel of art and addiction, self-destruction and reconstruction. It thrums with the joys, aches and pains of becoming who you were meant to be. Honestly, it sounds so interesting. We always want more trans fiction, and just, you know, interesting vibes. And I believe this has been up for / has won some awards, or at the very least has done very well and got a lot of like critical acclaim. So a bit different from my norm, because I think it's meant to be a bit like weird and kind of hard to read, but a fantastic challenge I'm looking forward to. And then the final book from Waterstones was Couplets by Maggie Milner. This again I think is a sapphic story, but what is really interesting about it, it is tiny, and the entire thing is written in rhyming couplets. I don't know how I'm going to feel about that, but I am very excited about it. It says it's an electrifying debut, and it's a coming-of-age love story, a story of coming out and a story of coming apart. A woman in her late 20s leaves a long-term relationship with a boyfriend for another woman. The affair thrusts her from an outwardly conventional life into queerness, polyamory, kink, and unalloyed consuming desire. And the whole thing's written in rhyming couplets. I don't know how you'd do that, but I'm so intrigued to see what it's like to read. So we started strong in Waterstones, and then we moved on to foils. Now, I will say here that I did also get some non-fiction in foils and a couple other places, but I'm saving the non-fiction separately, so I'm going to do fiction, non-fiction, and then arcs from publishers, just because it makes more sense in my brain. So we will come back around to the non-fiction later. But from foils, I picked up The History of My Sexuality by Toby Lackmaker. This is a book I have heard of over the last 6 months or so, I want to say, and sounds super interesting to me. It's again translated, and the original I think was really well acclaimed, and so it's finally been translated, which is really exciting. And this follows Sophie, who I think is doing really well in life, doing really well at school, like in uni and stuff. And it says, but in love and sex, she has a lot to learn. The effervescence account of a life of a 20-something in Amsterdam that charts the freedoms and complications of coming out and going it alone. Again, more queer fiction. What else could I need in my life? And more translated fiction, which I think is going to be really fun to start reading about queer experiences from around the world, slightly more versus a US and UK centric view of things. After this, we ventured to London Review Bookshop, which is quickly becoming becoming a firm favourite bookshop for me because it sells a lot of the slightly odd, slightly less known literary fiction. I say less known, to me at least. It's not what I hear about, but it's what I'm intrigued in. And I got 2 books. Firstly, I got Headshot by Rita Bullwinkle. This I'm so excited about. This follows 8 young girls who are, teenage girl boxers, the best in the United States, and it's told over 2 days of a championship tournament. And I think it talks about like the trials and tribulations and the psychology and the mental fortitude and the physical thrill and challenges of boxing as a sport, which to me is fascinating because I've done boxing in the past and have recently got back into it. And so this just felt like the perfect time to not only read a story about boxing, but specifically women in boxing, which is much less represented. And I just think it's going to be such an interesting read and honestly just the most perfect timing for me right now. Next up, I have Love Me Tender by Constance Debray, which was translated from French, I believe. I'm guessing from the name and from like other awards this book has won. And this follows a woman who tells her husband, ex-husband, that she has begun dating women, and accusations are made that separates her from her young son. And I think it's basically her account of going out and living her life and dealing with this and trying to rebuild relationships with people. I don't know a huge amount about this. It says it's a bold novel of defiance, freedom and self-knowledge. I think it's quite an angry book, but I'm intrigued to see how I get on with that because I know it's not everyone's cup of tea and I don't know whether I'll like that sort of style or not. But again, another gorgeous, tiny little edition and translated queer fiction. I am a stuck record and I love it. After that, we ventured to Gaze the World, an old favourite bookshop. I love it so much. Anyone that doesn't know about Gaze the Word, it is one of the longest running queer bookshops in the country, if not the longest, and it has loads of political history as well. It's really cool. Every book in there is queer in some regard, be it the author's queer, the characters are queer. It's fantastic stuff, honestly. I just absolutely love it. And I got 2 books there. One is In Defence of the Act by Effie Black. This is a book that's recently been nominated for the Women's Prize and is one my mum wanted to pick up, and when she picked it up I read the first chapter and was like, ooh, that sounds good, I'm gonna find a copy of that. And so I found a copy in Gaze the Word, which, quite good fun, is also signed, which I didn't realise until I got home, which is always a lovely surprise. And this follows, what's our main character's name? Jessica Miller, who is fascinated by the concept of humans taking their own lives and believes secretly that maybe that's not such a bad thing. And then I think it just follows her and her reflections on life, and it's queer in some regard because it was in Gaze the Word. I'm not exactly sure how yet. I believe the character is queer. I don't know. I mean, it says here, Jessica is coming to terms with her own relationships and reflecting on what it means to be queer when a single event throws everything she once believed into doubt. Can she still defend the act being suicide? What an interesting concept for a book. I love books that are going to make me think and question my own opinions on a matter, so I am so excited to get to this one. And I read, as I say, the first chapter when I sat in a different bookstore, and I was just reading it going, oh, I need to know. I'm just engaged instantly. So excited. And then the other book I picked up in Gaze the Word was from their second-hand section, which I hadn't really realised they had before somehow, and that's Shaggy Bane by Douglas Stewart. I've been wanting to read this for a long time. It's a Man Booker Prize winner from 2020. Super popular, very sad, very heart-wrenching gay fiction is about all I know about it. And I very intentionally don't want to know more than that. I am very content with knowing nothing about it other than the fact I'm mildly, completely terrified of it. And I think it's probably going to break me as a person, but it's very well regarded. And I know my mum loves it. I know some of my friends really like it. It's one I've wanted to pick up for years and then never end up buying. And so then even a few times I've been like looking on my shelves like, oh, I could read that right now, but I don't own it, so I guess I won't. Now I own it. No more excuses. I'm just gonna have to pick it up soon. And then wrapping up the first day of book shopping, we went to Judd Books, which is, I think, a like Remainder Books second-hand bookstore. And they had the American hardback of Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. Same author as Shaggy Bane. It's his second book. I know literally nothing about this. Again, other than my mother really liked it. Lots of people really liked it. Shaggy Bane's meant to be amazing. For the sake of £6 for American hardback, it just had to be done. Can I tell you much more than that? No. Is it queer? Yes. Do I need to know anything else? I don't think so. So that ended the first day of book shopping, which takes us on to the second, where we went to Backstory, which I mentioned at the beginning, and then Book Bar, which is in North London and is a similar vibe. It's bookshop and a bar, and it's gorgeous. I love them both. I highly recommend them if you're ever in London And backstory, I picked up I Who Have Never Known Men, which is one I've heard amazing things about. So many of my friends love this book. The one that always comes to mind for me is Leah from Lover of Pages, loves this. I think Christy and or India might as well, but I can't remember. We all read too much. And this is just the cutest little edition. It's the same edition as in The Absence of Men, which I showed you earlier. And I just thought it was so gorgeous, and it's one I've been meaning to pick up for a long time. I think this is slightly dystopian, but written quite a few years ago, like written in the 90s. Female, feminine, feminist literature. It sounds really interesting. I also justified buying this because I thought it would be a replacement copy and I already owned it, so it wasn't adding to my TBR. Turns out I was completely wrong, and I don't know why. I think it's just the cover. I'd got it confused with Untold Night and Day. So I did not in fact own this book. But I'm only so sad about that, aka not sad at all. And then finally at Book Bar, I picked up Green Dot by Madeline Gray. I have been eyeing this up everywhere, but I knew Book Bar had been publicising it a lot, so I was waiting to buy it from them. I'm so intrigued by this one. So this follows a woman in her mid-20s, and as it says in the front, mid-20s, which seems very young to anyone that isn't in their mid-20s, which is just such a relatable sentence. And you're following a main character who has previously only dated women, and she at work basically starts falling for this man and gets into this like slightly dodgy, I think, workplace relationship, and it's all very fast and dramatic. And she's kind of assessing who she is. I really like the last paragraph, this blurb, which says, Green Dot is a story about the terrible allure of wanting something that promises nothing and the winding, torturous, often hilarious journey we take in deciding who we want to be. It sounds fantastic to me, and also the cover's just really gorgeous. I love this illustration style, so I'm incredibly intrigued and cannot wait to get to it, like everything else. So to round out the book shopping portion of this video, I'm going to talk about some non-fiction books I got over those few days, and then I'm going to tell you all about some books I got from publishers, which is very exciting. So starting out with this one, which I got in Gaze the Word, A Trans Man Walks Into a Gay Bar. I've been meaning to pick this up for so long. I have a shelf of queer non-fiction, which I'm trying to make my way through very slowly this year because I don't pick up non-fiction that often. And I wasn't buying a physical copy of this because I often read non-fiction better on audio or more on audio. And so I was like, I'll get the audiobook. And then I saw this in Gaze the Word. I realised it's such a nice, floppy, big paperback. So I looked up to see if I could get the audio. And turns out there isn't an audiobook for this book. I just assumed there was, so I was just going to get it. And again, lovely surprise is that it's signed, which is lovely stuff. So I'm really, really intrigued for this one. This is by Harry Nicholas, who I've not read from before. This is his first book, it turns out, but he is good friends with Lindon, who I absolutely love. They're author of romance books, which I have up here. I also have a podcast called Queer Joy, which I highly recommend. It's Lindon talking to other queer authors about things that bring them joy. Honestly, couldn't recommend it more. It's the most feel-good podcast. I think there's 4 or 5 episodes out at the moment. I haven't listened to Harry Nicholas's episode yet. That's the next one for me to listen to. But I know of him via them, and it's got me even more intrigued to pick this one up. And in foils, I picked up possibly one of the most stunning books I've ever seen in my life, which is Gender Fucking. And this is the cover. Just take a moment to appreciate this. And this is the pleasure and politics of living in a gendered body. It's all about how sex and relationships interact with gender. And it says, featuring critical essays, erotica, and stitched up memories, Gender Fucking explores sexual arousal as a site of knowledge about the self and world. It just honestly sounds amazing and looks like it's really, really interestingly written. It looks like there's bits of poetry. I'm really intrigued by it. It's not one I'd ever heard of before. I was entirely taken in by the title, and then I saw the cover and it was pretty much a done deal that this was coming home with me. I then also made the decision to add to my Inkling collection. If anyone doesn't know what Inklings are, they are, well, these teeny tiny little non-fiction books on a very specific topic. I love the concept of Inklings. I have one before that Christy got me called BFFs, which I still need to read, which is all about female friendships. And very basically, they take submissions from people who go, I know and love this topic, let me write a little book about it. And then they publish them. I think there's like 20 out at the moment. There's a few more I want to get, but I thought I'd get some now because I've been meaning to. The first being All the Violet Tiaras, Queering the Greek Myths, which is written by Jean from BookTube. I do apologise, I can never remember how to say her surname, and I know it is not phonetic in any way, shape or form. I've looked it up a million times and it just won't stick in my brain. But this is all about the queerness of Greek mythology, which is so unbelievably up her and mine alley, so excited for that one. I then have Love That Journey for Me, The Queer Revolution of Schitt's Creek. I love Schitt's Creek. It's one of my favourite TV shows, and I think Dan Levy was a genius writing it and being in it. So I am so excited to read more about it from someone that also absolutely loves it, and it's by Emily Garside. So this should be such a fun little read. And then the third one I got was The Appendix, Transmasculine Joy in a Transphobic Culture by Liam Koneman, I'm gonna say. I'm so excited about this one, honestly. Like the tagline at the top of the blurb is, "So you're a boy, now what?" And again, a really lovely surprise from Gaze the Word is it's signed. So that's my little fun non-fiction collection for me to work through over the next few months, which I'm really excited about, because I do get very intimidated by non-fiction because you often have to sit and read for hours and hours and hours, and I love getting that deep into a topic. But sometimes I just want to do what is the equivalent of falling down a little bit of a black hole one day on the internet and just dive into a topic in really niche detail, and I'm so excited for them. Also, they're so cute, look at them, the most aesthetic tiny little things I've ever owned. So those are all the books I bought, though I will say, saying I bought them is a little bit of a misstatement. I will admit that my mother may have been responsible for the purchasing of lots of these because, you know, I might be an adult, but if my mother says she'll pay for books, I'm not going to say no. Why would I say no to that? So thanks, I know you're watching this, so thanks for doing that for me, much appreciated. And now we'll get into the books I got from publishers. Well, one publisher specifically. So all of the books I'm about to speak about were gifted to me in various ways by Little Brown Book Group, so massive thanks to them. I have had quite a few books from them in the past. They publish a lot of especially my favourite romance books, so you know, massive fan in general and absolutely honoured. But what was really exciting is yesterday evening I went to an event they hosted for content creators and influencers called Little Brown's Big Book Bash. They're coming from my B alliteration and I don't like it, but it was a fantastic event. It was really good fun. It was just a load of creators going, chatting about books. There was fun craft activities and things to do, and obviously the opportunity to learn about a load of their upcoming titles, a load of their existing titles, and free books, and what could make an event better, honestly. So I picked up quite a few throughout the evening, and I'll tell you about them and then tell you about a couple I've been sent by Little Brown otherwise in the last few months. So first up, and kind of the central point of the evening, was Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. They were giving out arcs of this to every single person that attended the event. There's the full cover behind the fancy flap, just like Bride had. And what was really lovely was that Ali Hazelwood was at the event for a bit at the beginning. So we all got to get our copies signed and to meet Ali Hazelwood, which was really good fun because I've loved so many of Ali Hazelwood's books in the past. I've spoken about it before on this channel and in my most recent video, I think, or last vlog, that I have loved multiple of Ali Hazelwood's books, and then there's been some I've not loved as much, but I loved Bride, like so much more than I could have anticipated. So I'm really intrigued to go back to a contemporary book from Ali Hazelwood and see how I get on with it, having read Bride, and her writing potentially have changed and matured a bit. I don't know. I'm very intrigued to find out, so whenever I need a next romance pick-me-up, this will be happening. And this comes out in June, so in a couple of months' time. To stay on the trend of arcs for a minute, another one I picked up was Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan, with this lovely foiled title, which may come and go a bit depending what angle I hold it at. This I'd never heard of. Comes out in August, so it's quite a long way away considering I'm filming this in March. This follows a girl who's obsessed with reading and whose favourite character is the villain of this fantasy series. And when this girl dies, she's given the option to enter into the world of this fantasy series. And I think she kind of becomes the villain, and also the villain kind of wants to kill her. And there was a little video clip at the event from Sarah Rees Brennan basically saying it's an opportunity to write about someone that loves stories and loves the villain. And this is proper enemies to lovers. And in Sarah Rees Brennan's words, enemies to lovers is not when someone has stolen your stapler. It is a knife being held to your throat. I'm so ready for this, reading about someone who loves stories, going into their favourite story. That's in and of itself such a vibe, plus proper enemies to lovers romance. I'm sold. I'm so sold, honestly. Literally the first line of the blurb is a tale for anyone who's ever fallen for the villain. So I will read this one and report back soon, but I have a sneaking suspicion a few of you may have already added it to your TBRs. Next, on a completely different vein, is How to Leave the House. That is the title there. Is that upside down? Yes, there you go. And this comes out in May of this year, and I don't know what to expect from this one. This was very much pitched to me as the main character's name is Nat West, which for anyone in the UK is a bank, and it's weird and not safe for work, and I was like, you know what, sure. This follows, I think, someone in their 20s, a neurotic 23-year-old who orders a very large sex toy, but the package never arrives, and they have to work out who it's been accidentally delivered to. Honestly, this is kind of, I think, adult lit fic. I'm so intrigued by it. I think this could be completely up my alley. And they had these little postcards, I think, with different quotes and different bits from the author, and this one just said, be sexier, sexier, and I was like, I'm so sold. And then it has a little note, which is really good fun, and I believe the author is also non-binary, which is always a vibe. So the anticipation for this one is so real. The final arc that I picked up is The Singer Sisters by Sarah Seltzer, and this to me feels like feminine rage or like feminine friendship version of Daisy Jones and the Six. So this is set, I think, in 2 timelines. I don't know if it's set there, but it's what the blurb says. So in 1967, you have Judy, who is rising to stardom as one half of a duo of the Singer Sisters, and they're touring, everyone's loving the confessional lyrics, and then something pushes them off course. And then you're in 1996, and an alt rocker, Emma Cantor, is playing at festivals, and she's never understood why her mother, who is Judy, gave up music at the height of her success. And I think it's the story of marrying those two things together and the impact that has on people, which sounds amazing. I then picked up a few finished copies, the first being An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. So I have read Diary of Blood, Odd Spirits, and I think something else by S.T. Gibson, I can't remember. And I've been waiting for this to come out. I'm waiting for Evocation to come out later in the year. I'm waiting for, I can't remember the name, the new Wuthering Heights Cross, what's it called? The Holly Black Prince series. You know the one, the really famous one I can't remember the name of. But I think this is basically polyamorous, sapphic, dark academia. That's about all I know, but I love S.T. Gibson's writing and I've been meaning to pick this one up, so when they had finished copies for us to take, I wasn't exactly going to say no, was I? This is proper dark academia vibes, thrust into an intense academic rivalry, the beautiful and enigmatic Carmilla. Oh yeah, this is the Laura and Carmilla like retelling, which is a vampire story, and I've read another retelling of it, but never read the original, so we can't wait. I then picked up Yoke by Mary H.K. Choi. This is not a recent release, it came out a good few years ago, but is one I've been meaning to read literally since it came out, and I've just never quite got around to buying, because I read another Mary H.K. Choi, which I really quite enjoyed, and I don't know a huge amount about this. I've been intentionally blinding myself to it for years, but I think it's like a family relationships, possibly like sibling relationships. I think I'm gonna love it. And again, they had gorgeous floppy paperbacks of it. What am I supposed to do? And then the final finished copy I picked up at the event was The Fetishist by Catherine Min. I'm just gonna read you the first paragraph of this blurb because that is about what I read before I decided this needed to come home with me. In this hilariously savage, poignant novel by acclaimed author Catherine Min, a grieving daughter's revenge on the man who caused her mother's death sets off a series of unexpected reckonings. It then says 23-year-old Kyoko stands in the rain with a knife in her hoodie pocket. Her target is Daniel, who seduced Kyoko's mother, then callously dropped her, leading her to her death. But tonight there will be repercussions. Following the unsuspecting Daniel home, Kyoko manages to get a rash kidnapping plot off the ground, and then nothing goes as planned. Come on! That sounds amazing and very different to the normal sort of things I read. We love it. And as we always say, we support women's rights and we support women's wrongs. We're here for it. Okay, I'm now ending race against my camera before it overheats and turns off, but I only have 2 more books to go, which are other books that were sent to me by Little Brown Book Group. The first being Leading Man by Justin Myers. This is a queer romance book I've read from Justin Myers before. I've actually got a couple more of his books I need to read, but I loved the one I've read. This follows Leo, who's quite quiet and lets his friends take the spotlight, and then a new gorgeous love interest appears. I think he gets put into the spotlight. I mean, it's leading man, dependable sidekick, or romantic lead. Who will Leo choose to be? It sounds fantastic to me. I love Justin Myers because he focuses on older characters than a lot of romance. The characters in this are in their 30s, and that's the same in the other one I read by him and the other ones I want to. So it's just a really different viewpoint, and I'm so excited to read more of Justin Myers. And then the final one I was sent is The Prospects by Katie Hoffman. And this follows a, I think, trans man main character who is playing in major or minor league baseball, I want to say, and basically turns into a queer sports romance. That's about all I know. And honestly, it just sounds amazing. They're rivals. It says enemies, rivals, teammates. It's going to be a hell of a season. I think someone joins the team and it's the two of them haven't got on in the past and it's all very tense, but somehow it's going to become a romance. And also it's just stunning. I love this so much. This one comes out in April, so I need to get to it ASAP. It may even be out by the time this video comes up, we will see. But that's all the books. Am I going to try and hold this whole stack? Probably. Is it going to end in disaster? Almost certainly. Okay, I feel like this isn't even all of them, but the stack... Yeah, so I'm not going to be holding a stack up. You just know there's lots of books. Let me count up and the camera overheated. So there we go. That wraps up the video pretty nicely. There are too many books here. I did just count whilst my camera was cooling down, and there are in fact 28 books. I thought there were more, but knowing me, I've just shelved them somewhere and forgotten them. So lots. Too many. I'm gonna have a fantastic couple of reading months though, because I'm so excited to get to every single one of these, and I've got them all on a separate shelf so that I can pick them up as I go and like prioritize them. So very exciting times. Just a massive thank you to my mother for funding my book buying habits, and to the publisher for hosting the event. It was a fantastic time, and for all of the books. I've had the best time collecting these books over the last few days, and it's really reinvigorated my love for reading and for creating content about books. So thanks so much. If you enjoyed this, let me know which of the books I've mentioned you think I should read first. I will take suggestions. Or are there any other books I should be reading? Also, let me know what you've hauled recently that you're really excited for, because again, I'm looking to expand my collection forever, even though I just got way too many books into my house. Part of me is thinking I should say I'm going on a book buying ban now, but I'm about to go to America and they have nice editions. So maybe I'll go on a book buying ban after that. I probably won't. But anyway, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below. If you don't have anything to comment, but you want to let me know that you were here, then post just as many book emojis as you can in the comments. Just spam it out. Just let me know that you're here with about as many books as I've just bought. But that is it for this video, so bye, and I'll see you in the next one.